to our 2 o'clock podcast here as we broadcast the Kitsap Homeless and Housing Coalition meeting. So glad that you can join us. They have already started, so let's go ahead and join
Hello, please mute yourself as you come in. Welcome to the Housing and Homeless Coalition meeting. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Housing and Homelessness Coalition. I'm going to put a slide up as people come in to direct you as to what to do. Please remember to mute yourself, and we'll get started shortly. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Lisa.
Good afternoon, Marwan.
We are live. I just need to step away for a minute, but we are broadcasting.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna wait just a few more minutes, but I'm gonna cue Priya and Bridget and any regular attendees. I'm gonna put up the meeting minutes from last month, and I ask that you review that and approve, and I also need someone to second. But before we do that, I am going to put up the agenda for today. Okay, so here's our agenda. It looks a little bit different. We have facilitators on behalf of the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance facilitating our meeting today. They're gonna ask some questions and have some conversation and consult with all of us to help create and gather feedback for a roadmap to housing justice. So thank you for your participation today. After their facilitated conversation groups, we will have time for agency updates. So if you have an update to share, you can go ahead and put your name and organization in the chat and say that you have an update to share if you do, and I will call you at the end. Also, We are being recorded by the conduit, so you have access to this meeting session and a few of our past meeting sessions. We just started recording on Zoom, courtesy of the conduit, and they post it publicly. I will get started reading the vision, mission, and values of the Kitsap Housing and Homelessness Coalition. Our vision: every person in our community has a safe, decent, stable, and appropriate home. Our mission is that the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition provides leadership to end homelessness through planning, coordination among all service providers, including advocacy and education. Our values: the coalition strives to carry out our mission with respect, commitment, compassion, integrity, and a willingness to change. And let me stop sharing the agenda and share the meeting minutes from last month. And then again, if I could just have someone to make a motion to approve or and a second. And here are our notes from last month. I will scroll slowly. We had 3 presentations last month. You guys were troopers for sitting through all 3 of them. From Bremerton Housing Authority, from Skookum, and from the Navy's Fleet and Family Support Program. And we had several agency updates. Do I have a motion to approve?
Lisa, this is Priya. I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
And
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. And we will get those meeting notes uploaded on the Housing and Homeless Coalition website. Okay, without further ado then, it looks like we're almost at 2:10 and ready to start our conversation. I'd like to introduce Paul Knox and Rebecca Potasnik and Beth Dolio. They are going to facilitate our conversation today to support the Washington Housing Alliance. I leave the floor to any one of you.
Great. I'll take the first shot at it. We're happy to be here, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for allowing us to kind of take over your housing and homelessness meeting. And we've been doing, this is the 7th listening session we've been doing on behalf of the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance. And the cool thing about them is that this is the most urban one we've done, I'd say. So we've been in the Okanagan, Walla Walla, Clowney, Mason, Thurston, Skagit. And so we're gathering input, especially I would say for the roadmap, which is the relatively longer term, 2 to 5 year plan that the Alliance is putting together. And so today's a chance to think and provide input to along a specific set of facets of housing and homelessness that will feed into the longer term agenda that they will have. And so this is the biggest group we've ever done. Mostly it's been the 10 to 20 range. We are going to break up into I think 3 groups, and so and we'll be taking notes and facilitating. So bear with us, but you will have a chance to point out, we're going to send out the notes afterwards, and you will all see them, and you'll be able to add to them if you want and send them back. Rebecca's our lead for that, and so she'll be sending these out probably through Lisa. And but we really appreciate the opportunity to do this. I don't know, you all want to do any quick introductions yourself, Rebecca or Beth, or not? The only thing I'll say about Beth is she just got elected again to be in the legislature. She took a break for a while, so you have a live legislator here to join your set of legislators that will be listening in, to kind of help enact this stuff. So that's very exciting.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, really great to be here. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you think the Washington State Legislature should be doing, not only this year. I mean, to be very transparent, the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance has already sort of released their agenda for the 2023 legislative session. So that aside, we're very interested in hearing issues that you think the legislature should be tackling, not only this, in 2023, but really they're really looking at putting together a 5-year roadmap of very bold policies that can help you meet your mission. You have a lovely mission. I share that mission as a legislator and want to partner with you on that in any way I can. But I am in this capacity. I do have my Washington Low Income Housing Alliance consulting hat on, and I very much look forward to hearing from all of you about what what policy changes can really help us solve the crisis that our state is having around housing.
And this is Rebecca, and I'll just add one logistical thing. As Paul said, we're gonna break out into listening sessions, and we'll each be taking notes in those listening sessions. I'll combine all those notes and get them to Lisa so she can send them out to your group. So you can, at that time, if we captured something incorrectly, you can email me back. I'll provide my email address. You can email me back and we can make those corrections. Or if you get to thinking and something comes to you later that you want to add to those notes, you can also send that to me and I'll add that.
And she is really good at it. She's amazing. So
another thing that we've been doing a lot is using the chat feature. So you can also communicate to your note takers in the breakout rooms via the chats. And that can also help us. We'll make sure to save the chats and get that information in the notes.
Great. And when we enter in a second, when we enter the one of 3 breakout rooms, you'll see the kind of how we each will go through how we've arranged the conversation today. So then we won't need to do that now. But we should probably just jump in, right?
yeah, I think so.
What, Paul and Beth, just logistically, are we gonna, sounds like the group is gonna keep meeting after we're done. So someone's gonna call us back out of what time do we want to make sure we get called back out of the breakout rooms?
Was that, Lisa, that'd be like 2:25?
Yeah, let me take a look at the agenda. We've got you at to go through till 3:35.
Okay. Great.
So we should come back as a group maybe around 3:25. All right. Who's doing breakout? Is that me?
That's you, Beth.
Oh, it is? Okay. So we're not like that great at this, so please bear with us. Include co-hosts when assigned. All right, we're gonna try this. Okay, well, I'm just gonna open all rooms and we're gonna go for it. Hopefully it'll work.
Hola, everyone.
Hey y'all, we're fighting nap time here, so I may be on and off.
I'm fighting nap time here too.
That time of the day.
All right, so we are in a breakout room here. And I was off a little bit. Can you guys remind me what we're doing in the breakout room?
I'm not sure either. I thought there was someone who was going to facilitate.
I thought one of the Washington low income folks was going to join us.
Ah, okay. Perfect. I'll say I may not participate just because I'm broadcasting this live. If you guys are okay with that, I don't think we're getting too personal or anything like that. But it's good to see everyone's faces.
Guess while we're waiting, Marwan, do you mind if I ask how the meeting yesterday went? Sorry, I couldn't make it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it went pretty good. We've got a few things to, do public comment tonight, in regards to advocating for the restrooms downtown. We just want to know, we're definitely going to ask for more, and try to push for that. But it sounds like the next steps are, where is the bathroom going to be placed? So did you hear back from the fire department? Were they okay with that location, or is that kind of?
I would say initially it was some hesitation, but yeah, I think step one is getting the money in the budget, and then we can start having those conversations.
Oh, really?
For sure.
Okay. So there was a, like, where's it going to be? And then secondly, how fast can we purchase the porta potties and then get them placed? And, we love to see them there by December 15th at the latest, if that could be possible. And that's the big one. And then the team decided that we would pilot meeting at 2 p.m. every fourth Wednesday, since we're already doing the pancake breakfast and people are there. And then we would just spend an hour kind of meeting. So I think we're the Pancake Warriors right now, unless we come up with a better name. So everybody here is, of course, invited every fourth Wednesday to 4040 Wheaton Way for a pancake breakfast that G2 serves everyone. And we just want you to come, introduce yourself, share out information that you have, and then we talk about different topics. And then, after that, we'll have a housing meeting on what we can do to support the unhoused, primarily on ML King, but, in all places.
Awesome. Thanks, Marwan.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome. It took me a little bit to get to room 3, but I finally figured it out. And I think we have the other 2 set. So, so I think I want to just start with some quick introductions. Maybe if that's okay, just like your name, if you have preferred pronouns that are, and also where you work. And I'd love to start with Kathleen.
And I am happy to lead the way.
Yes.
So I go by Katie. I probably should change that little thing on the Zoom meeting. My pronouns are she, her. I work for Catholic Community Services. I'm the program manager for the HEN program in Kitsap and Thurston County. And I'm involved with the Housing Justice Coalition also. And any other things I can get my fingers in.
Great. Thanks, Kathleen. Marwan?
I am Marwan Cameron. I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together. I also am the host of the Conduit podcast show. I am a trustee for the Kitsap Regional Library. And I forgot the other piece because I'm running the live. What was there something else I was supposed to share?
No, that's it.
That's it. Oh, all right. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Jerry.
I'm Jerry Delaney, and currently I'm the youth programs manager in Paulsbo for Coffee Oasis. But I'm going to be starting a new role in January as the director of youth programs for Kitsap. And my pronouns are she, her.
Great. Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen Kuchera. I am the program director for the Kitsap Rescue Mission in Bremerton.
Great. And speaking of Bremerton, it looks like we have a council member and a council member's side.
Yes. This is Max, so first introduction there. Yeah. And yeah, I'm Jeff Coughlin. I'm council member for District 3 in Bremerton, which includes basically downtown and Manette. Getting towards the end of my first year on council. And yeah, affordable housing is one of the top issues. I heard a door knocking last year.
Absolutely, me too. I can second that. Sandra? I don't know if Sandra can join us. You look like you're driving.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I am driving. My name is Sandra Ingram. I prefer she, her pronouns. I am a second year social work student at the University of Washington Tacoma campus. And I am a practicum student at Helpline House on Bainbridge Island. I have lived experience of being unhoused, navigating like poverty and all that stuff. And I'm highly interested not only as a representative of Helpline, but also for personal and professional reasons moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us, Sandra.
Thank you for having me.
And Virginia. My apologies. I don't know. Virginia. Kitsap County Department of Human Services, Housing and Homelessness Division. Wow, great. Thanks for being here, Virginia. Sorry your technology is not working. Madison? All right. And let's go to Leah. Okay, well, we'll get introductions from Leah and Madison when they return. All right, I am going to put up on the screen here a little, let's see here. Can you all see that? Is that big enough? Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through a basic, like, throw out your ideas. I'm going to write them down. You can correct me as I go if I'm missing something in it. But we're going to, and you can jump around if you like, but because you can't quite see everything on the screen, that makes it a little harder. But I'm going to go through each of the sort of buckets that we're looking at. So, you know, what can state policy do? You can veer into federal and local if it seems really important, like in Clallam County, short-term rentals is a huge issue for them. So, you know, they sort of veered into that, which clearly may have a state nexus, but is much more of a local thing. So if that's a big issue in the community, something along those lines, feel free to veer from state into local or federal. But we are trying to stay as focused on state policy as possible. So in the buckets, more affordable rental housing supply. And then we're going to talk a little bit about inclusive zoning to ensure more housing choices in urban areas, funding for homeless shelter services, temporary housing, so basic funding, permanent supportive housing and services. How can we, what kinds of policies can we do to create more of those options for our most vulnerable neighbors? Stronger tenant and landlord protections. That's been a big issue in the legislature for the past couple of years. Increased home ownership support to overcome racial and income inequities. If there's something else that you feel is super important that doesn't really fit into one of these buckets, like I said, I'll use the short-term housing. I didn't really fit in Clallam, so we use this. In rural areas, we've also added one to just really call out, you know, how can we be more equitable in making sure rural communities are getting some of the funding from, like, the Housing Trust Fund, for example. So with no further, unless you have any questions, I think I'd love to just start going in terms of ideas that you might have around the state creating policies or funding to create more affordable rental housing supply. Anyone want to kick that off?
Well, happy to jump in and just say, I know the city runs a rental assistance program, at least for BHA, and so just state funding to bolster those programs and sort of matching funds would be, I think, fantastic.
Great. Anyone else want to chime in on more affordable rental housing supply?
I think it's too bad that there isn't a way that we can add more incentives for builders, because there might be out there, but to build housing that's affordable. So we've got I don't know, 3,000 units being built in Bremerton, and I don't believe that any of it's affordable.
I'll piggyback on that. And there is a state multifamily tax exemption, which some of the exemptions require the builders to set aside a certain portion to be at affordable rent for a certain number of years. But it's been a long time since that program's been updated, and there's definitely some economic challenges. A lot of developers don't take advantage of it. So like re-examining that and making sure it's actually useful and effective would be great.
So, you know, actually, I want to drill into that just a little bit, Jeff. You know, it's actually been creating a lot of housing in. So, are you saying they're not taking advantage of the
12 years specifically?
12 years? Okay, all right, but are they taking advantage of the 8-year?
Yeah, the 8-year I think is doing well, at least in Bremerton.
So, yeah, okay, good. Then that need to revisit MFTE on the 12-year and making sure it provides more incentives to create those affordable housing units.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I think we've only had 4 projects in about a decade use the 12-year.
I think we need to define what we're talking about when we say affordable housing units too, because really, who are we talking about making them affordable for? Somebody on Social Security that gets $841 a month? Are we really going to be able to find a housing unit where they're paying 30% of their income in rent and utilities, $260 a month? So when we talk about affordable housing, what's the definition of that, and who are we making it affordable for?
Just, I think statutorily, the definition of affordable housing is that you're not spending more than 30% of your income on rent and housing costs. And so that's, you know, I'm sure Kitsap County has many people who are rent insecure. Probably about half of your population is paying more than 30%. I think that's the kind of the general percentage across the state. I don't know if it's different in Kitsap for sure, but yeah, I mean, I do think we're going to get down to permanent supportive housing. So that is much more directed towards, you know, I think affordable renting housing supply is really talking about people who are working, but are making somewhere, you know, under $26 an hour, which is about 50% to 60% of AMI for a family of 4. And, you know, but are gainfully employed and are not able to afford housing because of the housing costs currently, and or their wages, right? So you can look at either end. But that's just the statutory, you know, in terms of that 30%. And then, you know, and looking at those AMI. So I think permanent supportive housing, that's what we're looking at when we're talking about our very most vulnerable neighbors, under 30% for sure, up to 50%. And if we want to jump there, we can.
Well, really the golden ticket on Social Security, and it's just and I know that part of this is federal, but the golden ticket would be you get your SSI or your SSDI, and if you're getting under a certain dollar amount based on whatever magic formula they want to base it on, you get a voucher, period. So universal voucher, I don't know what you want to call it, but that's really the golden ticket. We have probably 40 people sitting that we can't house because they're on Social Security. And if I house them and help them for a year, then after a year, do they return to homeless? Because they don't have the help anymore and the rents are so high. So really the only solution to that at $841 a month or even $1,200 a month on SSI or SSDI is a voucher.
Okay. Mhm. Other thoughts? Great. I'm gonna move us to zoning. You can always come
Oh,
back.
I have a thought. Can I jump in?
Oh, yeah, sure, Marwan.
I just wanted to, from my
I would
understanding,
say your name correctly. Say
Mar
it one-
Marwan.
Marwan. Okay.
Marwan, yeah. From my understanding, when you get these tax credits to developers and they'll say, okay, we're going to put 20% for affordable housing. I mean, if you erect a 5-unit dwelling, that's 1 unit, right? So if you do 100, that's only 20, and so it really isn't making a big impact on creating affordable housing. And I like the example of folks that are on SSI, but also think about those that are disproportionately impacted when they're coming out of jail and prison, and it's very hard to find employment, and there's no resources for them, and just the homelessness that we experience, and the fact when you're thinking about men and boys and homelessness, there's not a lot of men's shelters, and then with family shelters, we had a family whose son turned 18 and he was a great kid, but because he was 18, he was considered a man and they had to leave the shelter. So the mother and the 2 brothers literally lost their housing because he had the gall to have a birthday. And so that's just a huge concern.
Well, and
After 18, you're considered an adult and kicked out of a family shelter. Did I get that right?
Yes, that is what happened at George's house. As he was
well,
18.
and the women's shelters, I think George's house will probably let them stay older than just about anywhere. But even some of the transitional housing programs that have family housing will only take a male child up to 9.
Wow.
And while we're talking about DOC, let's talk about some of the folks that can't find housing because of the way they're impacted. So landlords can out of hand deny housing because of specific charges. And I mean, maybe I'm naive, I guess, but it was my understanding that that wasn't the way our system was supposed to work. And I know that when you say SO, everybody automatically goes straight to the most horrible thing they can think of. And be that as it may, people have to live somewhere. They have to live somewhere. And if they have gone through our justice system and done their time, started off with the trial by a jury of our peers, I'm sentenced, I've gone through the justice system, I've done my time. Now I feel like it's our responsibility to help these people integrate back into society and become productive part of the group again. And they can't do that with nowhere to live. And it's a sore subject, and I know it is, and it's a hard subject to talk about, and there's a lot of hurt on both sides of that. But it has to be discussed at some point because there isn't anywhere.
It is a tough topic. Thank you for sharing, Kathleen.
Well, and I just wanted to add too, there's lots and lots of already existing structures that are completely empty, so, it might be a good incentive for landowners and property owners to convert those empty existing structures into somewhat of a small established studio apartments to help our homeless and to help those who are in need in homes.
All right, let's move to zoning. What do folks feel about zoning? Because that is going to be a very big topic in the legislature this year and for years to come. Thoughts about,
I guess just any incentives to help jurisdictions with higher density. Bremerton, I think, has done really well recently. We've enacted legislation on accessory dwelling units, on duplexes, triplexes, cottage housing. It's always a struggle between, getting higher density housing without destroying some single family neighborhoods. People kind of tend to oppose it, but finding the balance there and the incentives to get that higher density, I think, is key.
so you've done policies on cottage.
Cottage housing, duplexes and triplexes, that actually just passed the other month. And then last year, accessory dwelling units got a big update. Roll out a lot more of those.
But can I just ask if you, did you do targeted upzoning with the duplex and triplexes, or did you do that community-wide?
It was community-wide. It didn't change the underlying zone density, but it basically allowed them throughout the city.
So allowed up to triplexes throughout the city?
Yeah.
Interesting. How controversial was it, just out of curiosity?
There were, a few people opposed, worried about their neighborhood changing, even especially in my district. I have very much the downtown urban core with a lot of high density, and then the other side is very much historic single family. Some of the single family folks were worried. I kind of said, we're growing, we have to have people. We can either rezone and have, apartment complexes where you are, or we can go this route where we can infill our existing single family with duplexes, ADUs. But I actually was surprised. A lot of people were in support of it. There was a lot of yes in my backyard folks that spoke up. So that was neat to see.
Interesting. And just to, and when you talk about incentives, like, what do you think how could the state be incentivizing you to do more of that?
But
hey, Max, you helping out your dad today?
He has a lot of thoughts on the subject. The two incentives I see is one, incentives for jurisdictions that are historically very single family to get them to increase density. That's not the case with Bremerton, but some other cities I can see. The other one is actually, although the code now allows ADUs and duplexes, et cetera, financial incentives for folks to build those units. I've heard a lot of people that say, oh yeah, I'd love to turn my basement or my garage into an ADU and rent it out, especially to somebody in need. But they don't have that seed money, at least several tens of thousands of dollars that they need to convert it. So some sort of program where they could get that financial incentive to be able to do the construction would be great.
So I'm rural, and I agree with that. I would put an ADU, but by the time the county's done with me and the land use hearing and the permitting process, can't afford to build an ADU.
Heard of some bigger jurisdictions where the city will basically partner with a couple local companies. And these tend to be places where it's more, they have extra land so they can plop down a unit. Bremerton's tougher because you're probably remodeling. But basically they'd have a couple options where they're already pre-approved by the city. So somebody could just come in and say, oh, bam, yeah, plop that on my property. I got an ADU, and the financing is kind of wrapped in.
Hi, this is Scott with Kitsap Homes of Compassion. I didn't get a chance to check in earlier, but I just literally left the planning office an hour and a half ago. And the other issue, I mean, we're looking at the possibility of developing a micro shelter in Gorst, and the other issue is just the time it takes to go through the planning process right now. The timeline was, I asked about what was realistic, and it was between 180 minimum to 240 days to get through the process from application. And so while obviously with a shelter project, you know, we can ask the county commissioners to expedite that process. But the bottom line is that, you know, this what we're talking about today, we better be thinking about what we're going to do 5 years from now, because it's going to take that much time to get from here to there.
I heard a couple of things in there. I need to go back to Jeff, and then I didn't catch who was that. Was that Madison that was talking?
No, Scott Willard.
Scott.
Oh, well,
So what, when
Kathleen was talking earlier. And
Scott, your name on your little picture here on the screen says Madison Rozak.
It's because Madison registered for me, I bet.
Yeah, that's why she thought you were Madison.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right. I could cause lots of trouble now, couldn't I?
You could. No wonder when I asked you to introduce yourself, I'm like, okay, well, we'll come back to Madison. Anyway, okay. So sorry we missed your introduction. Can you just tell me what you do and where you're from?
Sure. I'm the executive director at Kitsap Homes of Compassion, and I use he, him pronouns. And we have 26 scattered site shared housing units providing permanent supported housing in Kitsap County.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for doing that work. Okay, but you went and talked to the county or the city, and you were told it was 180 to 240 days to get through the process to build what? To get
the planning approved to be able to cite a project. So it's pretty significant. If you came up with the money to do the planning process and all the studies that are required, then you're looking at the timeline for the project. Unless the county commissioners are willing to ask the planning department to expedite your project. And there haven't been a lot of projects that the commissioners have been willing to ask for expedited process. So it's kind of an issue.
That's huge, since they know how long you've been working on that already.
I know. It dates back to 2019.
Well, and just this year, there's another 6 months involved in that just this year alone. So
yeah, our own project, we worked for a year, spent $30,000 on all of the studies, and then at the last minute we were informed that they wouldn't approve it because the site we were looking to develop as affordable housing units was in a predominantly rural and commercial area rather than an area that had been targeted for growth. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. It seems like this is the perfect place to rehab an old eyesore to provide affordable housing, but it's not my fault.
Didn't they pick at you about the noise ordinance on that one too?
Yeah, it was, we were at the high end of the HUD guidelines for noise pollution. Yeah.
So there was a solution that the council member from Bremerton talked about that I want to go back to it. I didn't quite capture in terms of being able to just plop down. Like if you had I missed it because I was trying to help someone get into a room.
Yeah, it was basically what I understood is that some jurisdictions have a streamlined process where they've worked with local contractors and they say have 3 different ADU designs ready to go. And so a resident can walk in and say, oh, design number 2 looks great for my property. And then the city can basically connect them with a contractor, and the contractors have that ready to go, even with financing in place. So you just know, oh, it'll be $200 a month over 20 years, and I can get that built and it'll pay for itself if I rent it out right away.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes. I think actually Olympia we have some pre-approved ADUs. Yeah, that an architecture firm did with the city.
Could I jump in and make a comment?
Actually.
I don't know if this goes into zoning, but I'm hearing, duplexes and triplexes and micro shelters, which is the first time I've heard that terminology. These are very small, um, things that are being done. And to the gentleman from Compassionate Homes is saying, right, this is taking 180 days to 240 days. Um, and as we look into the future, we're trying to provide, quote unquote, affordable housing. Um, is there a conversation for, home ownership, whatever that looks like? If you get a 30 or 40-year-old into permanent or long-term housing, eventually they're going to age and get to a point where they're not able to work. So are we kind of kicking the can down the road if we're not looking at finding truly permanent solutions for folks to have sustainable housing throughout the life cycle of their life?
Yes. So we are going to talk a little bit about increased home ownership support to and specifically, there was a study that was just released, Marwan, that shows the home ownership gap in our state is ginormous and amongst racial lines. And, clearly that is a way to build wealth. That is like the best, the most reliable way to build wealth and equity is to own your own home. And so I think you will see some work around that in the legislature. If you have ideas around that, it'd be great. We can move to that right now. I think low interest loans, helping people with figuring out how to finance it, that sort of thing, but are some of the things that have come up in previous sessions.
Well, I guess my comment is more toward, folks that are in the most vulnerable position, right? So folks that are experiencing being unhoused, may not ever make a certain threshold as far as the salary is concerned. So what is there for them to have home ownership? We've got these condos down the 400s on Washington. Is there a way to, through eminent domain, take the Sizzler and the Denny's that has been sitting empty for 15 years or so and create an apartment complex and create home ownership so they actually own their own condos, going forward? It's just, I guess my concern is we're doing all the things and we do need to do all of the above, but in 20 or 30 years, is the situation just worse? Or, while Compassionate Homes does house so many people, are we creating a situation where, most adults, when they don't have their families, are living, 2 or 3 in a bedroom, and that's their existence because there's no other options.
Okay. All right, let's move to funding for homeless shelter services and temporary housing. There's your shelter situation and temporary housing.
Our shelter situation is horrible. They all have wait lists and people are on the cold.
Another issue that I would bring up here about our safety net housing services are predominantly provided via contract or via grants rather than contracts. So agencies that want to step in with innovative ideas, we can get our start through grants, but grants don't really attend to the ongoing funding necessary to be able to be mindful or anticipate changes in housing priorities, whereas contract allow for you to have some sense of stability as you're developing services and growing with the changes and needs of the community. And I just think it's significant that we attend to that question of how do we expect to provide safety net services via grants when every other organization attending to safety net services is doing so based on contract or simply as a line item in the county budget.
So, okay, I'm going to actually step out of my role just a minute as a facilitator here and just talk a little bit about the Homes and Health program. Have you been briefed on that? And do you know that program that the state created, the Apple Homes and Health program? Are you familiar with that? Madison?
So are you talking to the group or are you talking to me directly?
I'm talking, well, to you and the group, but you, yeah. So
say more, because I mean,
okay.
what I do know does not fix this issue. So
Right.
So
Okay,
you must
right.
have an agenda with where you asked that.
Yeah, I do. Okay, I just didn't want to go down a path, but so there is a something called foundational community support,
Right.
and that allows for who are considered, who fall into that category. You have to be disabled, chronically homeless to get that foundational community support. You're able to access Medicaid in an ongoing way, provide operating dollars like a contract in a way, but basically pairing our health department with our housing department at the state level so that housing is seen as a healthcare issue and is provided, and we're providing people with Medicaid coverage to get the services that they need to stay in their homes. And so there is a fair amount of money, both for the capital, the capital to build new housing units that access this program, and a whole program at the state to do that. So anyway.
So one of the drawbacks with the FCS program, though, is if one agency is serving a client and billing for FCS, then another agency cannot. They can only, so the client basically is limited to dealing with Mike's agency because Joe's agency can't bill for the time.
So an FCS client, say that again.
So
you can only have one provider at a time.
Yeah. So if Joe's agency is billing for FCS time for Mark, Mike's agency can't. It is the way I understand the FCS program. CCS uses FCS, but HEN does not have an FCS.
Yeah. We use FCS, and the other issue is that about 60% of our residents who all meet those criteria, by the way, actually qualified. So anyone that is a Medi, right? They have Medicaid and a Medicare, they're ineligible for FCS. And so the predominance of the actual population that we serve desperately needs FCS, that needs, the pairing of those medical and safety net services like housing and employment, they're not eligible. And so, because we actually built our program based on the belief that 80 to 90% of our residents would meet the criteria. But in point of fact, it's been closer to 60% of our residents actually meet the criteria to be eligible for FCS.
Is that because
we are
older?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, older and disability wise, they have qualified for Medicare as well as Medicaid.
Interesting. And so if you call it Medi, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that would be a fix we could make, right? Maybe? I don't
You
know.
would think so.
Yeah. That seems like a fix.
Except that this is tied to our
Federal.
Medicaid waiver. So the Medicaid waiver may not have space to allow for any shift on the state's part. I'm not sure.
Right. We just renewed that waiver, I think, last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, we did.
Well, in permanent supportive housing, really, I can see that kind of as the ticket, as far as a more expedient way to relieve some of the pressure as far as homelessness. We just need, 10 more Pendleton places. 72 units wasn't enough, obviously.
And that gets back to funding, really, right? And I don't know if you're experiencing this. I think someone talked about it earlier on. The developers, well, the developers came up in the MFTE conversation, but I don't know, how are your workforce issues around developers wise? Are you experiencing that?
I know that we do not have a nonprofit builder in Kitsap County. There's a few in Pierce and probably several in King, but we do not have one in Kitsap.
So all of yours are tax credit projects then?
You start talking about tax credits and you lose me on that one. I have to be super honest about that. There's so many different kinds of properties out there that, yeah.
The big projects that have been developed recently have all included tax credits. Pendleton Place included tax credits, which doubles the length of time it takes to actually develop the project.
Well, and then, but also Pendleton Place with their project-based vouchers, again, that becomes the golden ticket, because if they're there for a year and successful, they can take that. If they choose to leave the program, they can take that voucher with them. It converts to a Section 8 voucher or housing choice voucher, whatever we're calling it right now, and they can take it with them. So they can get through this program successfully for a year on a project-based voucher, convert that to a Section 8 voucher, and go live where they want.
Is there something in there I needed to capture, Kathleen? No, okay. All right. Anything else in any of these that we've talked about so far? We did some permanent supportive housing and services, and remember, what can the state do to really encourage and to help build, as you said, more, 10 more Pendleton places? I don't know if I spelled that right, but.
One of the things that I have difficulty with in the North End is it really isn't a lot of, there's no shelters on in the North End. And I have a lot of young men, because we do have at Coffee Oasis, we have a supportive women's house. But when I have a young man that hits the streets at 18, that isn't doing drugs or isn't doing anything, and I have no place to place him, how long am I going to keep him there? There's not really a solution for me besides our shelter in Bremerton, but like I have a young man that just came in and he can't go that far. Like he works on the other side of the bridge, the Hood Canal Bridge. So he doesn't want to go all the way to Bremerton because our transit system isn't great. So for us, I want to get these kids housed and in a good place, maybe a transitional house, until they can get their feet under them before they get, I don't want it to wait till it's chronic homelessness,
Well, or the Salvation Army is not an ideal shelter for
No.
someone who's never done drugs.
Exactly.
It's
heart-wrenching.
It is heart-wrenching. It is heart-wrenching.
What could solve that, Jerry?
I was thinking about like some type of transitional housing, or I know it sounds really maybe naive of me, but like a dormitory type of situation,
Hostel? Like a hostel.
Yeah, or something like that, similar to the Oxford houses, but maybe for people who don't have, I don't know.
Is the Parks
Yeah.
and Rec building still for rent or for sale?
I'm not
Paul,
sure
Paul?
what they're doing with that. We're meeting with the mayor tomorrow to talk about our building. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more indication what's going on with those buildings.
Yeah, because that Parks and Rec building has showers and everything. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. So it is difficult not having any type of housing solution in the North End. Besides our women's house, which is amazing, but we need something for young men as well.
Well, you guys need a shelter in the North End. Yes, for young men specifically, but you guys need some sort of shelter in the North End besides a cold weather shelter. And I think,
Correct.
is your foul weather shelter even opening up there this year? Do we have enough staffing?
Yes, Gateway has opened several times, and I believe that the one in Kingston, the Greens, I can't remember what it's called. They're open as well.
But yeah, you guys need some sort of shelter in the North End.
Mm-hmm.
Just for right here, right now, feel free to reach out to my office because we do have a space at our men's house in Kingston.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
As you're transitioning, you're asking, what is the solution? And I would just say, listening to the conversation again, whether it's a hostel or a dormitory, it takes care of the immediate need, but is the goal to get them, to a point where they can pay unaffordable rent? Because that seems to be kind of the goal. It's like, all right, let's find somewhere for them to be sheltered long enough for them to be able to jump into the rat race and pay $1,600 a month or $1,700 a month. And again, I just think that is not the answer. It's just, trying to plug someone else into the matrix. We really have to fundamentally think from the end game and work backwards on what we can do.
The permit support housing, R1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let's get to stronger tenant and landlord protections. What are thoughts in that space?
I think people women on record really struggle to be able to qualify. So I'm not sure how to face it, but maybe addressing that has to be something that's not a barrier for people getting housing.
I'm sorry, what was that?
People that have a criminal background sometimes struggle to get housing because of the application process.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe coming up with a policy that will not discriminate against them in housing.
We talked a little bit about that up here. We need to change someone into our group apparently. Okay, sorry about that. All right. Anything are you experiencing tenant and landlord issues in Kitsap County? A high number of evictions or landlords who are having issues and taking advantage of the mitigation fund? Anything going on in that space for you all?
I'll jump in and say from the city side, I know we've been discussing, we already have in place a number of protection or requirements if somebody's redeveloping, that they do kind of first month, last month rent, relocation assistance. If they're say buying an older building and fixing it up. And then we talked about for on the code enforcement side, you have situations where, you know, if the landlord has a rundown house, the city, needs to do code enforcement to make it habitable, but where does that poor person go in the meantime? And so kicking in assistance there from the city side of being able to relocate them. So I don't know if that exactly ties in, but I think that's what I got from my end.
And are you providing help in that situation, Jeff?
On the code enforcement, I can't remember if it's been enacted or we're just discussing it. There's been a lot lately, but yeah, that would come from city funds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not something you're doing currently.
No, if it did get passed, okay, I feel bad, I can't remember. Then it's basically just happening now. But yeah, state assistance on that side with for folks being able to relocate when needed would be great.
All right. It doesn't seem like that's not a hot button issue for you all.
It's a major issue for us.
Okay.
When we started 5 years ago, there was a space in the landlord tenant law that allowed for us to operate in essence as an institution. And based on that, we were able to utilize program agreements rather than leases. Those program agreements allowed for us to be a lot more flexible with people entering our program because we didn't have to screen so heavily for issues coming in. But as of 2021, those guidelines have basically disappeared. And now we have to operate the same as any landlord. And so now we've had to tighten up our eligibility to get through the door. We've had to actually utilize leases. So when there are the expected issues that arise, when you've got people in early recovery, people that are dealing with transitioning from homelessness, all that personality and all those conflict issues that come up, now instead of being able to work with a progressive disciplinary program and work with a internal home governance system, now we have to just act like landlords and go through an eviction process, which is a total contradiction to our mission statement, because the folks that we're working with have already had it hard enough. They either don't have rental histories or they have spotty, horrible rental histories. And so when we have to utilize the eviction process to create safety in our homes, it really sets folks up to be in a worse place going forward. And we've really struggled with it. And the other side of it, when it comes to our local partners in the cities, is that law enforcement has their hands tied in what response they can provide to support the other people in the homes. So it's been kind of difficult, and we've had to expend a significant amount of funds that should be for housing for legal fees to actually go through the process of eviction. So it's a challenge that I think there needs to be space in the housing law that is specific to supported housing, that gives us some space to be able, one, to protect the rights of those that are living there, but at the same time to work within a model that allows for us to attend to issues of safety without having to go the distance to an eviction. That's a lot of words.
No, and I'm trying to, I'm not sure I quite captured it. But my thing is that prior to the changes that have been made to the landlord laws, permanent supportive housing projects could act more, you called it as an institution.
Right.
And now you're sort of lumped in with everybody else in the eviction laws that are trying to protect people from actually being evicted, you know, sort of, you know, unlawfully or against their will, or, you know, it's trying to keep people in their homes. That was the idea behind the landlord tenant changes that we've made.
Right.
In your case, it is actually doing the opposite, because you're having to take people through and evict. There's not sort of an intermediary step allowed now.
Right. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it hits two ways. It hits on the way into our housing, because we're having to screen more carefully. So, you know, people are having to meet more stringent eligibility criteria. But
and
on
you're
the other
choosing to
end,
do that as an agency. I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that right? Because you want to try and avoid the problems down the line, or is there something in the law that is requiring you to do more screening?
it's primarily our decision so that we don't have to take people through that process.
Right. 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 Okay. So there's nothing in the policy that needs to change around that. It's on the back end of the eviction where you feel like you have fewer options in terms of trying to make the situation work.
Right.
It would be good to dig into that a little bit, maybe offline, about where that is. I'd be interested in hearing more about that, but like,
totally.
Like what? Well, yeah. Okay. So not anywhere step now. Like what, why isn't that intermediary step allowed? Under the law, under the statute, the new statute.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Virginia sent a text.
I know, I'm kind of, okay. All right, that's interesting. Yeah. Maybe we could work on the wording of that offline. I think we are gonna, is there anything else? I think we're gonna move back into the full group a little bit earlier than we thought. Some other groups have finished up earlier. So are there last things that people have thought of as we've been going that you want to share?
You know, I just wanted to add, we spend billions on Section 8 and other vouchers. And if we are subsidizing rent, why don't we subsidize home ownership? So if we're covering, you know, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month to keep someone housed, why not convert that to their mortgage and give them home ownership and put in a stipulation that should they sell the property back to the federal government or BHA or whoever, so it stays in the pool of affordable options for other people. So if it's a starter home for them, they've got a bigger family and they're doing great and they want to move up, and that house goes back into the pool for people to actually have home ownership. And we just feel like we need to do something radical to really make a fundamental change going forward.
Sort of permanent, instead of permanent supportive housing, we'd have permanent owned housing.
Right.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think I'm gonna move us back to a group. If I can. Close all rooms. Okay, we get 60 seconds.
All right, so we are going to transition back into the full group. So I'll probably have to unshare and then reshare so that it will come back in. Maybe I'll get lucky and it will do it automatically, but I don't think it does. So let me get that going. You are watching the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition meeting. I think that is a good discussion. I'm a little dismayed as Bailey was commenting in the chat that my comments didn't seem to get much in the way of feedback, conversation, or dialogue. I kind of feel like my suggestions are more permanent in regard to trying to really fix this situation. And not the
Hello,
symptoms.
everyone. We got pulled back into the main group. I hope your conversations went well. I'm going to open the floor to Paul, Beth, and I've lost you on my screen, but does your team have any like follow-up items or message for the group?
One thing I just have to ask, because we were in the middle of a conversation, we got pulled away, on the impact of military housing needs, with the flow and ebb of service members, et cetera. I would get your, what's your dear congressperson's name?
Miller?
Yeah, get him talking to Marilyn Strickland, Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, because she's on the Military Affairs Committee and is very interested in housing issues, on this side of the water. So, because that really is that should not something the feds should come through on that for more housing for service members. So it's, yeah. We had a lively conversation. We actually only didn't get all the way through. Close though. And I appreciated all the wisdom and input that folks provided. So I don't know what
Yeah, we had a good conversation too. Really appreciated hearing from all of you. I think from here on out, you will get a copy of the minutes that were taken at each, so you can kind of look through. And we got into some fairly complicated things in our group, and so I want to give people the opportunity to really make sure we captured the intent and the thinking, because there's some really good feedback, and we want to make sure it's captured correctly. And then we're ultimately going to take these conversations we've had across the state and put them into a report that you'll all get a copy of, and hopefully it will ultimately be folded into and become part of that 5-year roadmap that Washington Low Income Housing Alliance is actually putting together. And I would just also encourage you, we'll give you some opportunities when those minutes go out to become part of the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance network if you're not already. They do kind of help you think strategically about when to talk with your legislators about key issues that are before them, and how to share those ideas and what's going on in your community to make sure that the people who are actually seeing what's happening on the grounds, your voices are in those policies that we are trying to create, because clearly we create better policy when the people who are directly impacted have a voice in how those policies come out. We were just having a conversation about that at the very end around some landlord-tenant issues. So that would be a space where it seems like there needs to be some conversations with legislators in particular about some things we've done recently. And other than that, I think we're good. Sorry, we cut this group off early, Paul. We had groups going at different paces.
Well,
that's right. We got the most
again.
important stuff.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Beth and Paul, for facilitating the conversation, and thank you to the coalition for sharing your input and knowledge. Beth, Paul, Rebecca, you're welcome to stay for agency updates, or you can leave and you can correspond with me if you have notes to follow up with. We will try and get them posted to the coalition. And thanks again.
Great. I think we'll probably take our lead, but thanks. Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate the time together.
And I just want to make sure, Rebecca, did you capture the chat?
I did not grab the chat. My breakout group didn't have a very active chat.
I have the one that Kirsten just sent, and I'll put that in my thing. So
Okay, great.
So, okay.
I don't think there's anything
I'm
else.
gonna grab this one here. There's one more I want to grab. Okay. From Virginia. Thanks.
All right,
Okay,
great.
thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. Just a friendly reminder before we do any agency updates. If you have things to share with the coalition at this meeting or in our notes to follow up, please do put the name of yourself, your agency, and I'll call on you in just a moment. I also want to remind everyone that next month, December 21st at 2 p.m. Is our next coalition meeting. We are meeting in person at Norm Dick's at their big meeting room. And this is just to get together and celebrate each other. And we'll be also sharing some awards. We had a few nominations, so we're going to celebrate the good work of the coalition members here. We'll also firm up our executive team for the upcoming year. And so please do join us. Marwan Cameron and Gather Together, Grow Together has graciously offered to do some light catering for this event. So we'll have some coffee and some homemade cookies. So please do join us in person. This is also a pilot to see if we can engage the same number of people that typically participate virtually, because it's hard to get around. So for this special event, we're doing something in person. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but I invite anyone who has any agency updates to share. We will get those posted on the KHHC website and in the weekly newsletter that Katie Sharp, one of our executive team members, shares out weekly or bi-weekly. Okay, no updates, not even from you, Kirsten. Okay, we'll end our meeting. Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't. You know what? It's interesting. I don't know that we have any specific updates from the county. I mean, we're just kind of keep working on wrapping up stuff. I guess I will say that the KEEPA program is wrapping up. That we're basically not taking any more applications and winding down taking up any applications for our legal partners. Our buy-in for partner organizations are still going to be submitting applications through the end of the year, but that program is basically wrapped up, and pretty much the money for that is all spent. So it's been a good run. We'll have some final numbers, in early part of next year. We've helped thousands of families and landlords, pay their rent and stay housed. Our legal partners have been amazing. Our buy-in for outreach partners have been amazing, but unfortunately, the funding for that is winding down and running out. So just be aware of that. I think that's any of the other Housing and Homelessness Division staff have anything to announce? Oh, I'm sorry. Point in time count. Yeah, you should talk about that, right? Project Connect. Couple quick things on that. So we are gearing up to do the point in time count next year. We this year have the benefit of a whole bunch more professional outreach staff who have a lot of experience and a lot of connections with people in encampments already. So we're looking at slightly revising the way that we do our community surveying. We still will need a bunch of community volunteers, but we definitely have more folks who are doing that work professionally and can help with some of the encampment surveying. So that's super awesome. Stay tuned. We will still need volunteers. We will still need all of your organizations to participate in some way. The Project Connect planning is going along well. There's a great group of folks who are on the Project Connect planning team. It's not too late to get involved if you want to. We do have a Bremerton site confirmed for, well, let's see, it's Wednesday, January 25th at the Salvation Army has graciously allowed us to host it there again. We are trying to confirm a site in North Kitsap at the Gateway Church again in Paulsbo. And we're, I think, still looking at some possible sites for a Project Connect in Port Orchard on January 26th. There's still a lot of work to do. You will be seeing pretty soon an application coming out for your organizations if you're interested in participating in the Project Connect events. We have an application for you to complete to kind of register to be a vendor there. So stay tuned for that in the next couple of weeks. And a huge gratitude to folks who are on that Project Connect Planning Committee. It's really an event of the Housing Coalition, not the county. We just help support making it happen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about Project Connect or the point in time count.
Thank you, Kirsten, and thank you for coordinating to organize that group to do Project Connect. We haven't done that in a couple of years. We do have a couple of updates. Marwan, do you want to share yours verbally with the group here? I see it in chat.
Absolutely. So one thing is, this is City Council tonight at 5:30. This is the last time for public comment on the 2023 budget. We've been advocating for restrooms on ML King. They have earmarked $10,000 for that. So we just need voices to kind of speak out in unison in support of that effort. And there are several people that are watching live. And Bailey Tupai is saying that they are doing a homeless feed tonight at 6 p.m. and they can ask people directly what it is they may need. So he wanted me to share that out with the group. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Marwan. Also, Chris with the DSHS.
Hi, Lisa. Yes, Chris with the Bremerton DSHS office here. The update is regarding food assistance. Since March of 2020, clients have been receiving max food benefits with the only requirement of at least receiving $1 a month in food assistance. So for a household of one, the max amount is currently $281. So if they were receiving the minimum of $20, they actually got a supplement for the full amount of the $281. Now, due to the governor removing the state of emergency for Washington State, we've been instructed to inform clients that November will be the last month we're able to do the COVID supplement. And it sounds like December clients will be receiving what they're eligible for. So the COVID supplement will not go through for that month.
Thanks, Chris, for that update. Also, I just have a request. If you all have any special events or fundraisers, or if you're giving out supplies and materials, like especially throughout the holiday season, if you could just email the admin email for the Housing and Homeless Coalition, we will try and get those posted and shared with everyone in our networks. I have a feeling that there's a lot of activity in the winter and it's hard to keep up with all of that, but we want to make sure we can share that with the people that we serve. That is it for today. I don't see any more updates. I thank you so much for this listening session and for participating and for being a member of the coalition. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you in person next month at Norm Dix, December 21st at 2 p.m. Bye.
Take care all.
Bye, everyone. All right. So that will conclude the Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. Please let people know that is shocking and alarming news. That's the first that I heard of it. Apparently, what do they call it? The COVID supplement for food assistance is done this month. So next month, your food stamps are going to go back to what you are eligible for. So this is definitely going to affect people. I honestly wish they would have done this in January, right? As there are many people that celebrate the holidays and are probably really looking forward to having that supplement to do their holiday turkeys and family dinners, whatever it is. So and New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. So that is that's a little alarming. I guess the only good part of just having that information is being able to get it firsthand and hopefully not being shocked and surprised, right? I know folks have started getting their stamps here last week. Yeah, it's wow. That's crazy, right? I mean, why would they pick December 1 to do this? Like, there's no good time, but definitely December. It's like, wow, or roll it out and let people know, hey, we're going to be ending this program in like 2 months, 3 months. So start to readjust how you're going to live. But to do this just like that, wow, it's yeah, that's a tough one. Like I said, the only good thing that I could take from this is being able to broadcast this information out, and hopefully folks that are watching can share with friends, family, clients, it just whoever, so they're not being blindsided by this information. And when information comes out that they can take advantage of, they're hearing about it within plenty of time to actually take advantage of it. So the last thing I'll say is it is easy to join this Kitsap Housing and Homeless Coalition. Your voices are needed, right? So you can see who was in the room and what they were saying. And while some folks, were, to me, saying good things, a lot of it to me just seems like putting a band-aid on the situation, right? I know for a lot of the people that I work with, for a lot of people that work at G2, right, or volunteer G2, that there's no home ownership that's built into any of the problems that they're trying to solve and address. And so this is a huge concern. Um, and it seems like if we're going to work on this problem, if we flipped it, you have the folks that are at the top that have their home ownership, they have their retirement, they're okay. You've got the middle class that has pretty much been decimated and it's gone. But you do have a small one. And then you have the folks that are, in the most of harm's way. If you address that first and work from the bottom up and you give them permanent housing and home ownership and you work it up that way, I think you fix the situation better, right? Because the people in the middle that are kind of just hanging on, but they're able to pay their rent and do what they got to do, right? We can keep them housed, right? But the folks that are unhoused, that don't have these resources, there's so many of our folks who have grown adults still living in their home because they can't. There's a failure to launch, right? Launch you into what? How can I send you out there, making $15, $16, $17 an hour when you can't even pay the rent that's out here, right? So it's like, hey, to put someone into a permanent housing or temporary permanent housing for a little bit and say, okay, well, they'll get on their feet. They're going to go ahead and work a job. And we know a lot of our folks are working multiple jobs, right? To make that Bailey did $35 an hour. And that's an interesting stat because I actually put that in my calculator when he put that in there. So just to kind of talk about that, you know, $35 an hour is $72,800 a year. Well, 20% of that is going to go to taxes. So if you multiply that by 0.8, your take home is going to be $58,240, right? And this is assuming you work, every day, right? You're working 52 weeks. You're not taking a 2-week vacation. Your take home pay after taxes would be $4,853, right? But if they want you to make 3 times the rent, right? 3 times the rent would mean that your rent would be $1,617. See how that works? And so now it doesn't sound so crazy when someone says, hey, you need to make $72,800 in order to make 3 times the rent just to qualify for $1,617 of rent. We have to do something radical. We need to do something different. But your voices have to be at the table because they're going to take this stuff back. These are the folks that are going to go to Olympia and have these conversations, right? And again, homes for compassion definitely needed, right? The men's homes and things like that, they're definitely needed. But if I'm a 30-year-old man, I don't want to live like that forever. Eventually, I want my own spot. Maybe I want to, find someone and start a family. How can I even do that? American nightmare, not American dream. However, again, I just encourage people to make their voices heard because they need the diversity of voices in order to advocate for those things. And as Bailey said, I asked what I thought were some thought-provoking questions, and there was no dialogue from it. It was just kind of okay. So it's like, well, that's not consistent with the direction that we're going in. All right, Joe. Again, Bailey will be downtown feeding tonight at 6 p.m. We'll keep on keeping on as we do. City Council is tonight. I will be broadcasting it live. You can watch if you're not going to make public comment, but if you do make public comment, that is one of the things that we're advocating for. They did earmark $10,000 in the budget. Again, yes, we know that it is not. It was laughably pitiful to earmark 10 grand, but at the same time, they haven't done this before, right? We have to start somewhere. Yeah, I will do that. They're at the Norm Dix, Bailey. That's where it is tonight. Norm Dix, 5 p.m. We have to start somewhere. And so my hope is get the porta potties downtown, the ADA porta potties, put the needle receptacle in, right? And what we were advocating for was get them down there, do a pilot program, keep them there during the time that the severe weather shelter is open, which is until March 31st. And as that time is ticking, right, you need to find more money in the budget to keep this thing going. Folks need to have restrooms. And so we're going to continue to meet every 4th Wednesday at 1 p.m. You heard Councilman Coughlin, which that is his district. He did come to the pancake breakfast. So we will applaud that, his engagement. And so there's a different time now. We have to hold folks accountable. And if they do the right thing, we got to support what they do that is correct, right? And then support their action. He's going to need support in advocating and pushing it forward. So he can take it to the council and kind of do it. But if we leave him hanging, or whoever's advocating for us, and I think about Leslie Doggs, right? She didn't have a lot of support there and then got burnt out. So election is just the first step. You got to support them once they're in and keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So until we get everyone housed, we need to make sure that they have every human right possible: food, shelter, hygiene, bathrooms. It's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow, folks. The severe weather shelter will open. please let the unhoused know we do pick them up. We take them to one of the 4 emergency shelters, and in the morning we'll take them where they want to go. Right, so we'll be there in the morning. But it is unseasonably cold early. It's only November 16th, and that shelter's already been open 2 or 3 times. I think this is going to be a brutal winter. All right. Let's work together. Let's work together more effectively. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. I'm Marwan. This is The Conduit. We'll see you in a couple hours.